What's up, fellas? We're back for another installment of Manhood Mondays. I pray that you had an incredible week, and it's my hope that this week's devotional will serve as a spiritual boost to get your week started off on the right foot. Today, I want to talk to you about a discipline that is definitely pertinent to our times, and that is the discipline of perseverance. As we chronicle all the success stories of many famous and successful people throughout our world and nation's history, there's this common theme of perseverance. It's not that they didn't fail or go through disappointments and discouragements, but it's the reality that they refuse to allow their setbacks to keep them from accomplishing their goals. And that's what perseverance is. Perseverance is staying committed to your purpose despite all of the difficulties and discouragements. It's patient persistence. It's the idea of waiting on your breakthrough as you press toward the mark. And the discipline of perseverance is living out kingdom principles as you seek to accomplish your kingdom goals. As we look at this discipline of perseverance, I can't think of any other passage in the scriptures that points to this discipline better than Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 through 3. Now let's look at what the writer of Hebrews has to say about persevering through difficult times. Therefore, since we have so great a cloud of witnesses surrounding us, let us also lay aside every encumbrance and the sin which so easily entangles us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. For consider him who has endured such hostility by sinners against himself, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. Here, the Hebrew writer is writing to Christians that are facing intense persecution. He spends this entire letter reminding them and encouraging them not to lose heart in the midst of so much adversity. He points them back to Jesus as being the greatest thing that they've ever witnessed and being greater than any obstacle that they're ever face in the future. And if we fix our gaze upon him, he'll give us the strength and the encouragement we need to make it through difficult times. This passage comes on the heels of what scholars call the Faith Hall of Fame. These are Old Testament saints that trusted God in the midst of their trouble, and in turn, God rewarded their faith and credited to them as righteousness. And it's with that backdrop that I want to give you 4 principles of perseverance from this text and provide 4 practical ways for us to live it out. The first principle that this text demonstrates to us about perseverance is that we need to first take it off. This is a scene of a runner preparing for a race at a Greek Colosseum. And before these runners would engage in their race, they would take off clothing and anything that would weigh them down from running as fast as possible. And that's what the text is telling us to do. First, we need to take off the distractions. These may not be bad things in and of themselves, but if they keep us from growing spiritually, they're distractions that will keep us from accomplishing our goals. Second, it tells us to lay aside the sin that so easily entangles us. Sin, these are conscious acts that separate us from God. And as we're growing as godly men, we should not grow in ways to manage our sin, but we need to seek to kill sin at its root so that we can live in such a way that pleases God as we persevere toward the mark that he's called us to. Second, he tells us to run. This is engaging in your race and running the best way you can. It gives us 2 ways that we should run. First, we need to run with endurance. The Christian race is not a sprint, it's a marathon. You see, sprinters, they exert energy for short periods of time to run very quickly, but a marathon runner has to be able to endure the struggle and the pain of long distance running. And friends, this text is telling us to run with endurance. But next, it's telling us to run the race that is set before you. Run your race. Don't attempt to run someone else's race because you'll lose every time. But God has carved out a specific race for you to run. As a matter of fact, if you watch track and field, running out of your lane can be a means in which you get disqualified. So here's what I'm encouraging you to do. Stay in the God-intended lane that he placed you in and run your race and fight off comparison as we move forward toward the mark. Third, he tells us to focus. This text says, fixing your eyes upon Jesus, who is the author and perfecter of our faith. As we're running and we eliminate all of the weight and the distractions, we need to look away from some things and look to someone. We need to focus on Jesus. He is the perfect example of perseverance. But not only should we focus on Jesus, but we should focus on the things that Jesus focused on during his life and ministry. The Bible says that for the joy set before him, he endured the cross and despised its shame and is now seated at the right hand of the throne of God. What a beautiful picture of being so committed to something that it became a joy for him. Jesus had the joy of accomplishing our salvation. And as we run our race, we ought to have the joy of living out our kingdom principles as we seek to accomplish our kingdom goals. Then lastly, the text tells us to consider. It says we need to consider Jesus. Consider what he went through. Consider his character, that it was him who knew no sin that became sin on our behalf so that we might be the righteousness of God. Consider the fact that he was the fullness of God dwelling in bodily form. Consider the fact that he gave up all that he had so that we can regain everything that we lost. And when we consider Jesus, it will keep us from growing weary and getting tired along the way. Focus on Jesus. Take off the weight that so easily encumbers us and run your race the way God intended you to run. Here are 4 practical ways to live out the discipline of perseverance in your life. First, manage your environment. The right person in the wrong environment will often lead to frustration. So if we're going to persevere, it may require you to remove yourself from a particular environment and place yourself in an environment that is more conducive to where you're going. Develop godly community and surround yourself with like-minded individuals that will speak life into you as you seek to carry out your purpose. Next, eliminate distractions. This is the idea of removing things from your life that do not have redemptive value. If Satan cannot destroy you, he will attempt to distract you. And if you're going to persevere along the way, you're going to have to eliminate distractions that keep you from carrying out your purpose. Always ask yourself, is this keeping me from my purpose or is this pushing me toward my purpose? Third, create a clear vision. Proverbs 29:18 says, without vision, the people perish. This is the idea of writing down your vision, making it plain, and allowing God to make his edits along the way. Write down your vision, because when you have a clear vision, it produces endurance within you because you know that there is something beautiful at the end of the journey. Then lastly, commit to the process. Friends, there's no shortcuts. The reality is we're going to have to remain committed to the process that God is calling us to. Because not only is God trying to use you to accomplish something, but he wants to accomplish something in you along the way. So commit to the process. Well, family, that's it for the discipline of perseverance. I pray that this has been a blessing to you. And if it has been, let me invite you to like, comment, and share this with someone that you believe that this would be a blessing to. That's it for this installment of Manhood Mondays. And I pray that you have an incredible week. And I can't wait to see you next week. God bless.